Well, come back. I'm going to try that again. Edit that. Welcome back to Childcare Conversations. Sometimes only one of us have a voice. And so this week, you get me. I'm so excited to be here with you. Carrie is giving her throat a rest. And so I'm going to talk to you about the whole concept of strategic planning. Now, I can't cover all of strategic planning in 20 minutes. But we are going to have a conversation specifically about maybe why strategic planning, how to prepare for strategic planning, and what are some components of strategic planning that you can do today. And it's not even January. So one of the things that we all kind of hear about is New Year's resolutions. And so a lot of people start thinking about goal setting when they're thinking about the end of the year or the beginning of the year. So here we are in November. We are going to start to take a look at what to prepare, what are some things to look at, and make sure that you come into your goal setting session prepared with all the right tools. So strategic planning isn't something to do in one day, and it isn't something to do without any of the information from the previous year. You've probably heard people talk about data, numbers. Hopefully you have, and hopefully you have them. You may not be able to look at them and actually try to figure out how to put this number with this kind of data and what you're supposed to be looking at. So we're going to talk about strategic planning specifically around enrollment. January is one of the key enrollment periods. So hopefully you're listening to this in enough time that you can maybe make any tweaks that you've had to make after looking at some of the data for the September enrollment period. We want you to think about your enrollment goals. You need to be specific. They need to be SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So in other words, by a certain date. It's going to be easier for you to create those specific SMART goals if you have all of the information from August to September, depending on how your enrollment cycle works, and you're clear on what did you do for marketing, how many calls did you have or email inquiries, how many tours, and how many people enrolled. Okay, so let's start getting all that data together. The first piece of data, that's probably the easiest piece, is how many new students did you have enroll that weren't siblings anytime between August and the end of September, or whatever your traditional beginning of the year enrollment period is. So that's probably the first number for you to figure out, and it's probably pretty easy. So once you get that number, this next step, you should be able to at least look at your calendar or maybe through emails, but you need to come up with the number. How many people took a tour? Do you offer an online tour that they can take immediately? Do you offer any of this automated? Something to keep in mind. Now that you know how many people took the tour, how many people were scheduled for the tour? All right. And then how many people called or emailed wanting information or scheduling a tour? So not every person who calls and asks for information about your program is actually going to schedule, but you should be keeping track of how many of those people have called, emailed, filled out a form on your website. All of these inquiries, you have to be able to track. If you haven't been, it's only been a couple of months, go back and track that content. Now, based off of that information, look at where you spent money or time promoting, marketing your program roughly from maybe July through September. If you aren't sure where people are coming from, then you need to add that into your phone call or emails or into your form. So you need to know, are people coming from Facebook? Are they coming from a public event that you held? Are they coming from word of mouth? They were referred by a friend or a family member. These are really key because that's how you're going to be able to continue to stay current with your enrollment and your marketing. So if you're sitting here and you're going, okay, I haven't been doing that, maybe I need to make a change. Well, this is a great time to plan that. Two other things to think about as you're looking and you're collecting your data. Go pull up your scripts. Yeah, I said it, scripts. A lot of people kind of hear that word and they're like, oh, I don't need a script. Yes, you do. Why? Well, if you're not the only person who ever gives a tour, you have an assistant director, co-directors, maybe an owner, you have other people who help give tours, you need a script. If you're not the only person who answers the phone, you need a script. If you're not the only person who responds to email, you need to make sure that you have some standardized responses and initial emails. You know what would be even better? Get all those automated. I'll come back to that. So if you're old school and you actually have people call your school on a landline, then I would suggest that you probably have a 3-ring binder right next to that phone. Make it some obnoxious color, bright orange, bright green, pink, whatever you need to do so that people know where that binder is. And in the front of that binder, put a script, how to answer the phone. When people ask, do you have infants, an infant spot? If you don't have an infant spot available, then there needs to be a way and a place for them to immediately capture that family's name, phone number, email address, and the birth date of the child they were inquiring about. Because all of this has to find its way into your CRM or your customer relations manager. Now, there are all kinds of softwares. You need to figure out what's going to work best for you, maybe integrate with some of your other programs, but you still need to be able to capture the content. If you're not really comfortable with a script or nobody's been using one, write one. Because this way you know that everybody's getting the same information. And in that notebook, have a place at the back for people to actually write down the forms. Now, if you're lucky enough to be able to have some staff that get to be at a computer and they're at the same computer over the course of the day and they can answer your phone calls, then you know what? Set this up in your CRM or your customer relations manager. Have a place where they know to put all phone calls, regardless of what the response is. We have caller ID. We should always know somebody's phone number. So you get their phone number, their name, the age of the child. If you want to, the name of the child, that'd be great too. But you want to make sure that you're collecting that data. And don't forget to ask them, how did you hear about us? Did they drive by and see your awesome front porch? Did they meet you at a community festival because you were running the Kid Zone? Did they see your ad in a local publication? Did they just hear about you from a friend? Maybe they saw your program on the t-shirts of a soccer team. It doesn't matter exactly where they found you. You just want to know how they found you. So once they've called and they've scheduled their tour, what does that process look like? So do they have to call you to schedule, or can they just go in to an automated system using something like Calendly, Google Calendar, TidyCal, C-A-L, and they can schedule their own tours? Make sure your teachers know when tours are scheduled, and make sure that you're thinking through what time it is. You really want to showcase that classroom when it's at its best. So they've scheduled the tour, you've sent a reminder the day before, you've sent a reminder the hour before. Maybe you've even figured out how to automate text messaging. You've sent the reminders and they've shown up to the tour. This is awesome. So now they're here. When you're giving the tour, do you have a written script? This is really, really important. It doesn't matter if you've done this a bazillion times and you've been doing this for 25 years, or if you're new to the job. Because the only way to know what's working is to do the same thing every time. By having a script, it's easier to follow along and to make sure that you're doing the same thing every single time. I know sometimes this feels old-fashioned, so it doesn't have to be verbatim. It can be a notebook that you carry with you. And as you get to specific classrooms, you know there are key points that you really want to present. You know what makes your curriculum and your program awesome. We need to make sure that we share that with the families that have come in to visit you. At the end of the tour, don't forget to ask them, when are they starting? Not, do you like us? Because we don't really want them to like us. And remember, this tour is for you to interview them, because it's about making sure that they're a good fit for your program. It's not about whether or not they have 1 kid or 3 kids. It doesn't matter if they are a subsidized family or a not subsidized family. It's about making sure that you guys are the right fit. So remember to ask them questions in addition to them asking questions of you. When the tour's over and they've enrolled, make sure you keep track of how they found you. If they were a referral, make sure to thank that family or those friends. So if it's a current family at your program, this is a great opportunity for a call out in a newsletter that just says thank you to the Smith family for recommending your friends. They can't wait to start next week. They don't need to know all of the details about what family and how people know each other, but it does mean that you can thank those people who are raving fans of yours. All right, so we've gathered some data. We've got our scripts. As you're sitting down to look at your marketing and you're looking at your strategic goals for enrollment in January, you need to be realistic on how are you going to get them. So first of all, what's preventing you from getting them right now? Perhaps it's staffing. Perhaps you've got kids and you're a program that when people age up in January, you age them up, and so you're going to have some openings. So really what you want to do is build a wait list for a certain age group so that in May you have that opportunity. There's a lot of different strategies that you can be implementing for your January enrollment. Based on my experience as a director, pick one age group at a time to try to fill the classroom. Make sure you know which classes are breaking even and which classes aren't. Also, make sure you know when is the best time to showcase those classrooms and when is the best time to hire the next staff person. So for example, if you have a classroom that's licensed for 16 kids, but maybe your teacher's really just comfortable at 12 and personally you want to have a second when they're above 12, then don't enroll that 13th kid. Put that 13th, 14th, and 15th kid on a wait list. This will be awesome for your teachers and awesome for the parents, because you know what? The parents want what they can't have. This is simple. Think about how many times you've clicked on something and it says, we're out of stock or coming soon. You usually get a little frustrated because you're like, but I wanted that now. And so it makes you look and keep checking in. Now, all those families who have called you, who have taken a tour, even if they didn't start your program in September, I'm sure you've added them to your newsletter, to your communication app, however you keep in touch with prospective families. So now that you've got your prospective family list, you've got those that have been on your list for the last year. Make sure that in December, you send them all a note reminding them that January enrollment is coming. But you won't know if you're successful unless you're clear on what your goals are for your January enrollment. Once everybody's moved up, sit down and figure out how many spots do you have in your infant classroom. Maybe you have more than one infant classroom. How many open spots will you have? How many open spots do you have in maybe 12 months to 24 months? Everybody's a little different on how they choose to align some of those age groups. Your toddler classroom, your pre-K classrooms, even your school age programs. Make a list and look at that list and go, okay, where do I need to spend my energy? Where do I need to spend my advertising or marketing dollars? What parents do I need to have a conversation with? So right now, you got about 2 months. If you know for sure you really want to add some more twos or toddlers to your classroom, make a list and figure out how many open spots you have. Then have a conversation with some of those parents, because those parents, guess what? They know other toddler parents. It is kind of crazy. And if they don't, ask them if they have friends with toddlers at their faith-based organization, perhaps maybe where they go to church. If there's any activities that their kids do you know where all of your kids spend their free time? How many of the kids in your program play soccer? If you're not really sure, this is a great time to ask, because maybe you need to be at the soccer fields. It's okay. Sometimes there's a lot coming and a lot of ideas generating. Feel free to pause. If you've got some of those ideas, put pause on this podcast, come back, take some notes, listen to it again. Because if you don't have the data, you won't know exactly what you really need to do, and you won't really know what's working. Hopefully that helps. We look forward to talking to you more about strategic planning this month. We've got 4 great episodes, and we hope that you are able to set your specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely goals. Have a great week, and we will talk to you next week.